to uh, 2020, March of 2020, um, my studios get shut down, right? I had three fitness studios at the time, and when I was living in Jersey, and the governor, he shut it down. And so I looked at my wife, she looked at me, she said, what are we gonna do? Right. And I said, well, we got to pivot like everybody else. We got to pivot. And we started doing like the whole Zoom workouts or whatever the case may be. And then I started seeing a lot of what was being mentioned on the news, which is, Americans were hurting. I was hearing a lot of like people were hurting financially. I was hearing a lot of like this is the biggest, one of the biggest recessions and declines in the financial, economic, social structure that we've ever had in eons. And so I was hearing a lot of this. Now, that was one side of what I was hearing, but I was also plugged into the sales space, right? I was plugged in with both Eli Sanchez and Eli Wild, and this was one of my first introductions to them. And I saw more people who are now retired because of COVID.
Yeah.
Because of that one event, there are more people that are now retired. You know, the whole pina colada on the beach, sail off to the sunset. Yeah, that life
Yeah.
because of COVID. And I went down a more of a rabbit hole and I started to realize that there are people that made more money during
Hmm.
COVID than someone has made during their entire life. Okay, well, then, if that's the case, and this part blows my mind, if that's the case, then what is true? Is it what I'm hearing on the news or what is it? What am I seeing in real life? This is why I tell you the world is inside out, it's not outside in. And so what I mean by that is that if so much people are making money, I refuse. And I saw it with my own eyes. I saw people doing $500,000 a day, by the way. And so I refuse to buy the lie when people say that there is all this lack around us. I choose to believe in abundance because I've seen it firsthand. And so I think it's easy. It's easier to find that narrative where you go, yeah, well, not a lot of people have money. How many times have we said that, right? Where you go, yeah, people out here are hurting. I do not want to dismiss or devalue what people are really experiencing in this world. There are people right now that are absolutely hurting. There are people right now that don't know how they're going to make it to their next paycheck. And I want to appreciate that. But I also recognize there are people that don't even know. They're trying to figure, I know people personally, I'm not naming names. I know people personally right now that are trying to spend money and buy up more properties because they have to figure out what to do with their money so they don't get jammed up tax season. What an amazing problem to have. So they're just buying up properties because they got to get rid of their money. So I think it's always important when your backup is against the wall when it comes to sales, when you're hearing a lot of no's, it's easy to buy the lie and say, well, you know what? Maybe people don't have money right now. Maybe all the Johns that are telling me that times are tight, maybe that is true. Because the moment that you believe that is the moment that you no longer fight for these individuals anymore. You're giving them a window of escapism. Does that make sense, team? And so
Yes.
always understand that people out there have a desire to buy what you have a desire to sell them. And part of that is them recognizing who you are. I can't remember who said it, but it said it's not what you know, it's who knows you.
Mhm.
And so more people just have to know who you are, gentlemen.
Yes.
More people that know who you are, you will never have a problem selling anything in your life. Like Eli said, forget the techniques for a second. It has to do with who knows you.
Right.
And so something to consider, and don't buy the lie. There are more
Yeah.
people making more money than you can ever imagine in one day than you will ever make in a lifetime. If only they knew who you were, right?
Yeah. That's where they say you need to make your network your net worth.
For
And
sure.
that's what the wealthy do. They everybody that they know they're in business with. And the middle America is always like, I don't want to deal with the people I know. It's like, what are
Mhm.
you talking about?
Yeah.
So it's the
Yeah.
opposite. Yeah.
And it becomes fascinating. I'll say this last point. Um, uh, Eli, I don't even know if you remember this, but he said it, Eli, you said this to me in passing. This was like 3 years ago or something. But you said this to me in passing, and you were just like, yeah, we were talking about so and so. And he goes, yeah, and I hopped on a call with this guy, and he wanted some help with something, and so he paid my hourly fee. And I was like, what is it? He was like, 4,000 an hour. And he just kept talking, right?
Hmm.
But in my head, I'm like, hold on, why are we not addressing what you just said, man? Like,
Mhm.
like somebody paid you $4,000 for an hour. That was another time when I refused that solidified it for me. I will never buy the lie
Yeah.
that there is lack of anything in this world. There's only abundance, but it's what you choose to focus on. Make sense, team?
Yeah. Can I ask both maybe you and Eli a question because you said something right. There's a lot of people that could be saying no to you, and that could be the wrong market that you're in.
Mhm.
So that could be part of it. But also, like I remember when I was hurting financially for 15 years, one of my prayers in life was kind of a negative prayer, and I never noticed it. It was, Lord, as long as my family's healthy and taken care of, it's okay if I don't if I'm okay. Like if financial hurt is my biggest issue, I'm okay with it.
Mhm.
Because I was thinking about family. I was thinking about, and because of faith, sometimes we think like money's not that important, right? So my prayer was, as long as my family and everybody's taken care of, if financially I'm hurting, I'm okay with it. So then I think I let a lot of good things pass my way. Is there anything you can, because we run into that to a lot with a lot of people, depending on what market you're in. Is there something you ever talk to people about that mindset of where people are
Mhm.
coming from?
I have a few thoughts
Yeah.
on that. Eli, I'm sure has some thoughts as well. I want to hear from you, but let me give you this perspective. You know, so I'll come at you guys from a different there's a few things I had planned for today, and I
Sorry
like
about that.
no, these are good. I like when these calls become organic because I think we delve into some areas that need to be addressed, and these are kind of the things that we keep in the basement, right? But let's kind of have some fun with this a little bit. There's a few things that you said there. Number one, I think we have to, if we look at this just from a philosophical standpoint, moreover a biblical standpoint, we know the most famous marketed, heavily influenced phrase is, for the love of money is all evil. But most people take that out of context, right? What
Right,
they miss
right.
is that biblically, right, it's for the love of money, right? So it's the obsession of, right? It's the obsession, not the thing itself. Okay,
Yeah,
that's kind of 101. But let's go a little bit further. This idea that money is something that we are born to chase, this idea that you work, 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 you toil, 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 and then all of a sudden, bam, the wealth event happens. Look, Ma, I made it. I got a lot of money. I'm successful by your definition of success, only to realize, and here comes the frame that I know you're familiar with, you're still not happy. Because I can tell you right now, the guy who has $5 million, he's sad because he doesn't have 8 million. And the guy who has $1 billion, well, he's sad because he doesn't have three. Because the same thing that we're chasing, we only realize that money doesn't change who you are. It just creates more of whom
right,
you are already. And so
Mhm.
if you are broke and depressed, you become rich and
Broken, depressed.
still depressed. You're rich, but you're rich now, but now you're still depressed, right?
yeah.
If you're a jerk and you have empty pockets and you all of a sudden the wealth event happens, you're still a jerk, but now your pockets are full. And so what does that mean? That means that there is no end to fulfillment because I can tell you right now, I've sat in rooms with people that have a couple more zeros in their bank account than I do, and they still go through the same emotions that I experience: anxiety, depression, regretfulness, lack. They struggle with all the same things. These individuals commit suicide. And so what does that tell us? When does it end? When is it enough? It's never enough. That's an interesting dichotomy, isn't it? Why? Because that should signal to you is that should signal that, well, maybe what I'm chasing needs to be something of higher relevance. And this is where fulfillment comes in. This is my understanding of fulfillment. Tony Robbins, in a lot of his talks, he has this talk on human excellence. And one of his talks on human excellence, he talks about, there's a few branches of human excellence. One of them is to model behavior of someone that has what you want, what you desire. But another element of human excellence is be on a mission that is bigger than yourself, right? And I
Yes.
can tell you right now, the ambition of wanting to make a lot of money, having made a lot of money in my life, I can tell you that flame runs out very fast. But if you are here to create quality jobs, right, Sergio, which is what you do, you create quality jobs. You allow people to put food on their table. You allow people to pay their mortgages, their rent, whatever it is. Well, you can naturally run that race for the rest of your life. I've been doing it for 17 years. I don't plan on stopping. And so I think about this idea where money can be easily villainized. Why? Because social media has conditioned us in a manner to realize you're not working hard enough, you don't want it, you're not committed, you're not strong enough. There's a are you guys familiar with Andy Frisella?
Yeah,
Yes.
Yeah, 75
great.
hard guy. He said something on a podcast, and I loved what he said. I'm paraphrasing here. I wish I can remember verbatim, but I think I'll still do it justice. He said, the people who you follow that tell you all the things that you want to hear when it comes to the motivation and making money and being a millionaire and cars and wealth and all this, they recognize something you have failed to recognize and will figure out once you get to that level, which is what? There is a bigger market for victimhood than there
I
is
saw
for
that. Yeah.
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 power, wasn't it?
Yes.
Yeah.
I
So
heard
powerful.
that. I had to stop. I was working out. I was listening. It was a podcasting, and
Yeah.
I was like, man, I almost wanted to delete every single motivational thing I got on on
Yeah.
my
Yeah.
phone.
Yeah.
A bigger market for victimhood. People are like, oh yeah, it's okay.
Yep.
Yes, yeah, it's crazy. So
Eli, what
powerful.
are your thoughts on this, man? I want to hear from you too, because I know you probably got something.
Well, one, to go back to what Sergio said, I love these Tony Robbins isms. And I just the last couple of days I'm driving around. There's this guy that I was never into, and his selling style is not my style, but he's got some good points. Grant Cardone, and
Mm,
he has this one thing as he goes into it. He's got this book I was listening to this morning. It's called "Be Obsessed or Be Average," and he really
Yes.
kills this idea
Yeah.
of not being obsessed and really leans into it. And he says this phrase in there that really just got me thinking: success is my duty, it's my responsibility.
mm,
And I pair that in my own mind with kind of, if you've been to a UPW, Tony Robbins
mm,
term, he has this phrase that, and the way he builds context to it, I'm not going to do it justice here, but it's just raise your standards.
mm,
And like some people, their standard is to pay most of their bills. Some people is to pay the bills. Some people is to make sure their family is taken care of. And that's what they get. But there's also that phrase, it's a poem in Think and Grow Rich. It's like, I bargained with life for a penny, and that's the litigation. and I asked no more. But it's like, I didn't realize at the end of my life, only dismayed that life would have paid me any wage that I would have asked life to pay. And so
mhm,
what are we demanding of life and setting this intention into the world? And there's all the Neville Goddard manifestation, but even in, affirmations and Tony's affirmation that he said, I now command my unconscious, subconscious mind to direct me in helping as many people as possible today,
Right.
by giving me the strength, the emotion, the humor, the brevity, whatever it takes to show these people and get these people to change their life now. And so it's like making these demands of life, which requires at the same time to make demands of ourselves. But it's all going to be hard. Being broke is hard, working is hard. So it's the
mhm.
whole phrase, cheat your heart. And it's going to be difficult. And then, really just, as you enter into conversations, it's like what it does in this context of sales, having an internal frame is I choose what clients I want to work with. And
Yes.
there's people that will just pull from you. And we had a 1 year access to like a $300 version of an NLP course. And it went out after a year. We actually let the guy stay in for 2 years and we ended that portal. And he's like complaining, sending all these support emails. I was like, we gave you access to another year. And then there's other people, they're like, man, I can't believe I got access to the month for only $300. And so,
Right.
it's just like, I was like, we'll just refund somebody or whatever, they can get this thing. But I just, I want to create like a demand of my time and energy where that's what's acceptable. That's a standard. And then as it relates to everything, our health, our body, our relationship, and it's like one of those cheesy terms, like the more you work on yourself, everything becomes easier. And so sometimes the things that we need to work on is ourself, and we got to do the work, which now we feel like we deserve to have the thing.
Yes.
And our family deserves to have the thing. And there's a term in Kabbalah called bread of shame, which basically means like you get something, but you didn't earn it. So you're getting this thing, but there's shame attached to it. And how that manifests, people frivolously spend, they do things, they say things, but when you really feel like you've earned it, and that's different for all of us. But at the end of the day, when you went to bed or when you did something and you gave your all, you can't compare yourself to other people, but it's like having that internal guidance system where and you feel strong, you feel good about it, not beat yourself up, but know there's always going to be some growth. And the question I ask myself a lot when I'm in it, and I'm in it now, is what would this look like if it were easy? Or how can I enjoy the process? Aaron's talking about working out, not always fun, but listening to a podcast, feeding his mind. And so what would this look like if it was fun? And if I can bring more joy to the situation, I'm present in the situation. And, I get rid of all that money nonsense. Can I only this? I really look for that limiting language and just know that's my next evolution. And just in that, you channel something in your standard, in your frame, and what you communicate around your standards, and people either tune out or they tune in a way that allows them to raise their standards. And I think that if I don't enter into a conversation with a high standard of myself, and I'm in a client, and maybe I lower my price or I do this thing, I don't think it's serving them long term. It's like, or I'm serving my family. It's like I'm leading by example always. And so me imposing these standards on my time, on my discipline, and all of that, it's like I'm unconsciously raising the consciousness of the planet. And we're all in this together. And I think we have that responsibility and that duty. And part of that comes down to making sure that we're not only emotionally abundant with our family and love, but financially abundant, because success is our duty. It's a responsibility. And if we have the ability, like there's people that run races but don't have legs. They find a way. They go to the Olympics. It's pretty amazing what a human being can do. And they say not to compare yourself, but sometimes you see, like on Instagram, you're scrolling around and you don't want to work out, and there's some girl doing squats with like one leg. There's this video of a black dude who's missing a leg, and his one leg is like the size of my trunk, and you're just like, holy shit, and you're just like, man, it's like the guy is unbelievably jacked, and he's like got this middle pole for the other leg, and you're just like, oh man. And so sometimes you see that, and it just reminds you of what we're truly made of. And then to be able to translate that into our business and our finances and reframe it in our mind. I'm not asking of people. I'm not asking from people. I'm asking of them, but in their own benefit. And so that reframing there, and to also believe that we should be paid for that. Yeah.
I love this. There, this is good. On the heels of that, you talked about this idea, Eli, of comparison, which I think is important, which I think there's an angle here in which you guys can all appreciate. And I want to go back to that social media example, because by the way, what I'm about to say, every single one of you guys have experienced. And the reason why I say this is because social media has, again, conditioned you to make you feel that you are consistently inferior. In other words, you're the guy who is still in last place trying to catch up to the front runner. Now, so what do? This is key. The problem that we create is we confuse self-love for self-punishment. Think about what I just said. Self-love for self-punishment. Example, Aaron, what do you mean? Here's what I mean by that. Sergio, I'm just making an example just to make my point, but Sergio, who is trying to lose 30 pounds, here's what he does. On the weekend, he loses track of his goals. He ends up self-sabotaging. He might end up having more pizza, more donuts, whatever. And instead of resetting on Monday, recognizing where he can improve, what does he do? He hops on the treadmill on Monday for 3 hours. And so he's confusing self-love for self-punishment. And what interesting is just like any relationship, what happens is that you end up building a bad relationship with your body and the way that you relate to fitness. Well, the same is true for entrepreneurship. We confuse self-love for self-punishment. Example, Ken, who knows there's a part of him that wants to do more, work harder, produce at a higher level. For whatever reason, life happens, right? Whether it's friends, whether it's family, life happens. But he knew he should have been doing this. Why? Because he saw something on social media that means that the wealth only respects the grind. Insert cheesy phrase, right? And so what does he do? Well, he pops a cortado, right? He pops a double shot of espresso, and then he works through the night, burning the candle on both ends, trying to chase the wealth event because someone else is outpacing him, outlapping him.
It's good.
Only to realize a year later, he's still where he's at. Why? In terms of wealth. Because the reality is that he spent the entire year confusing self-love with self-punishment. You see, the problem, gentlemen, that I often find, and I struggled with this, and there are some days I still struggle with as well. One of the I'll show you guys this just to kind of prove my point of how much I subscribe to this idea. I like to read every morning. Eli, you probably have this, right? Leading an Inspired Life by none other.
Eric sent you that?
What's that?
Eric sent you that, yeah?
You bet your bottom dollar he sent me this.
He sent the same one to Chase. He sent it to everybody.
This is such a good book. And I I read this book, Jim Rohn, right? And Jim, he has one of Jim Rohn isms in here is that when you're at work, work, when you're at home, be home. And I think about that quote, and the reason why is because we often will confuse that. Oh, there it is. Beautiful. Yeah, he's got it. Yeah. That book is a powerful pickup. So much good stuff that, Jim talks about there in that book. But this idea that we will, my daughter will be playing. She'll be talking to me. I'm talking back to her. I'm physically there, but I'm not present. Why? Because I'm thinking about all the things I got to do. And so what I do is that, in other words, I end up giving her my time, my physical presence, but on my spiritual presence. I end up giving her my time. I'm rushing to do the thing. When she finally goes down and I get to do the thing, well, what happens? Dad guilt washes over me because now I'm like, oh, I should have been more present with her, right? And now what happens is I run this vicious cycle. I become a dog chasing my own tail, and the pattern continues. And so it's damaging. So the question becomes, how do we break the cycle? You have to understand that this game of work and life balance, you'll hear a lot of different iterations on this. I don't believe it exists, and I never will ever have this right. There is no percentage. There is no 80 this, 20 that, 60 this, 40 that. You will consistently be in conflict with how you spend your time. You will consistently be in a tug of war with who demands more of your time. Well, I want to put more food on my table for my family. But you know what? I gotta be present with them as well. I know they can't grow up without having a role model or insert whatever responsibility that you have. And so I think the step number one, again, my opinion on this, step number one, you have to separate yourself from this idea that being rich has to happen overnight or whatever definition of success. You've heard all the stories before, and Sergio's nodding his head, so this makes sense. You've heard all the stories between Sam Walton didn't even tap into Walmart until his second season of life, right? Barbara Walters in her career, Oprah Winfrey in her, all these individuals that never really tapped into their season of life. J.K. Rowling until they were in a different season of life. Wealth doesn't happen overnight. It happens with daily inputs. But most people are impatient. And so it's easy to buy the lie that others are making quantum leaps in 1 month, what you have yet to do in 5 years. And so you consistently feel like you're behind. What are you thinking, Ed?
Um, you got to make it easy to win. And in my edisms, I don't believe in balance. I believe in harmony. So if you go across health, wealth, spirituality, and relationships, if you're doing really well in your business, then that means something else is probably not lacking. And the moment you become aware, that's when you readjust without judgment or punishment or anything like that. So having that practice helps you do what you keep hearing me say is a binary micro win every day. So
Mm,
when I hear you say that, I'm like, okay, so I'm doing what you brought up in this whole conversation was I recently had a breakthrough. My method was I can make shit ton of money, but I always let it go. I find a way to let it go. And I had my fuck it moment where I was like, I spent 150 grand in 90 days and had no idea where I spent it. So I was like, okay, so what are we going to actually do about it? Instead of worrying and being a victim, what I decided to do is make it really easy to win around money. So what does money allow you to do? It allows me to help more people. And then so I take that, how do I help more people in business? How do I help them in health? How do I help them in all aspects of my life? So that came up for me during this conversation. I was like, oh, and I recently had that epiphany that I equated to making a shit ton of money that to I was actually going to die. So once I hit my number, right, so every time I get close to it, I find a way to go back to what's comfortable. But what I recognized was the way I made all the money in the beginning was illegal. And I was always told you're going to end up in jail or die. And I
mm,
still carried that frame at 50. And I'm like,
mm,
oh, so I was like, you can reprogram it. Boop, I bet. And so now I'm on a whole nother plane. As I make more money, I'm bettering the lives of my family and others at the same time because they deserve what I have. And
mm.
it's And for me, not putting it out in the world is a detriment to someone that one person I could help.
Yep.
So now I'm on a
Yep.
mission to help 100 people. So
I love it.
Nice.
yeah,
That's so good. There, there was a visual that I saw. You guys probably saw this. Is one of those ones that floated around the internet where Michael Phelps, the Olympic swimmer, he's in the Olympic pool and the cameraman catches this so perfectly. You see the swimmer on the left, swimmer on the right. They're both looking at Michael Phelps in the moment, and yeah, you've seen it, Sergio. And then he's just looking straight, right?
Yeah.
And it kind of chunked up to this is what winners do. Winners keep their eye on the prize, right? They're not
Right.
focused on others. And I like that because I think that the same is true for sales, the same is true as it relates to life. We feel as if that there is something that we have to continue to chase. And I promise you, yes, you do want to be able to be successful to a degree, financially free to a degree, and all those things are true. But I also find that will consistently keep you in this kind of unconscious hamster wheel because it's never enough. It's never enough. Your cup is never filled. I'll say this and I want to hear from you, Ken. I turned 37 in January. Last
whippersnapper, whippersnapper. Oh, let me go on
Congrats.
mute.
am I 37? Am I the youngest in the room? Is that fair to
You are
say?
the youngest.
Probably.
You are the youngest. Yeah. Amazing.
So I'll make a statement, but even though I am the youngest, I say this with absolute sincerity, and with respect to all of you guys, which is I had an epiphany. And I know you guys have probably recognized this, but when I turned 37, most people, when you ask, okay, what is middle age? Middle age, most people quantify that as being 50. Why? Because very linear, 1 to 100, middle ground is 50, right? Interestingly enough, we have now been able to obviously prove average lifespan anywhere between 74, 76, depending on male or female, which means when I turned 35, 36, 37, I officially became middle-aged. Which means what? I got more days behind me than I do ahead of me. And for me, knowing that I have to make sure every moment counts is what keeps me aligned to make sure that my relationships are always the primary and as a secondary revenue follows. I'm at a stage in my life where deep and meaningful relationships are the only thing I'm chasing. And as by proxy of that, revenue always follows and it follows in abundance. And so maybe that's something I should have learned earlier in life, but I'm glad that I figured it out now for me. I don't need a chart of 4,000 dots to recognize how many weeks I got left in my life, or I don't need what I need to recognize that I'm in a season of my life where the perspective I need to have is that the quality of my relationships ultimately become the quality of my life. And so I think that's another perspective shift. If, I know we're talking about two, three, four, five, but if you're going to
Yeah.
walk away with one thing today, I would suggest looking at it that perspective, like you owe no one nothing. The race you are running is your own. Wealth is subjective. And so success, there's no absolute truth to success. The world will make you believe it's quantified by how many zeros you have in your bank account. Bob Marley is quoted by saying, you're a famous musician. You have a lot of riches. Tell us about some of your riches. You must have cars. You must have watches. You must have. And his response was, "What is that? Riches in terms of watches, clothes? Those are not my riches. I don't put my riches in terms of materialistic things. I put my riches in terms of my relationships." And so I think we kind of brainwash ourselves, and it's easy to do that.
Mhm.
What are you thinking, Mr. Stone?
Well, you know what? I have to say, this is a really great conversation, and I'm glad to be able to speak it with people who have various points of views and backgrounds. My background is really related more to the streets. So I related kind of to what Ed might have been trying to allude to. My whole idea has been a hustle, and I ended up on Wall Street just because the power of your mind and thinking things, even though I had no clue as to how it happened. It was a whole sequence, and I won't go through all of that. But when I ended up on Wall Street working for Merrill Lynch, what happened was my whole idea, the way that we were done at that time back in the 80s. You threw everything up against the wall and see who stuck. You know, a lot of people burn out, quit. And I was able to stay with Merrill really about 9 years before I decided to go on my own. But the habits that I had, that what I call that street moxie, is what helped pull me along all the way. So I've had these struggles, kind of like what Sergio was even talking about. That's why I said I can relate, where, my thing was a hustler. And so as a hustler, I can go hustle up money. I can make money, man. But then, like Ed, I can go through it. My wife and I were laughing at when I would score a big hit where, maybe $100,000 a month, then see, I would quit, and then we would just go spend the money. And then I had one coach tell me, says, man, even though junkies, pimps, whores, that kind of thing was kind of like my environment. So I'm just going to be raw with you. I'm
Yeah,
cleaned up.
no.
I'm cleaned up today. And so so that was my thing, right? And so I had a coach said, man, you are really almost like a heroin addict. You get your fix, which is me getting the
Yeah.
money, and then when I
Mhm.
get the money, I put my feet up, as the joke would go. I come and say, what you drink, what you drink, what you drink. House all on me, right? And we
Yeah.
would go to Disney World, right? And then when we come back and 30 days later, I don't have no money. Then it's like, uh-oh, I think I better get out here and get it. Well, two things happen as a result of that, and that's where the learning is and why I'm really where I'm at here today. One, at some point in time, and I hustled because I wanted to be able to send my kids to the best schools that I could and all that stuff, and I did all of that. But then all of a sudden, it was like that old 7 Up commercial that came on when they said, well, what's my motive? Now what do I do when that's done? And I ran out of that. I didn't have anything to do it necessarily for anymore, if you will, except for I spent all my time and talent and money just doing that. So what I came up with is chasing money is not any good. I can't stand it. I can't do that. However, the bigger picture is that with my expertise and the things that I've learned over time, I can really help people. And at one point in time, because of my background, my thing was I wanted to help a lot of the poor people.
Mm.
But only thing you can do helping poor people, if you don't have any resources, be poor yourself. And so I was never on that. So that's not an issue. So now I've come to the point where I'm good, I'm steady, but then the game has changed. And so that's where I would argue. Sometime I heard a little bit of something different there. The way I see it now, the same person that I talked to, let's say just 5 years ago, that conversation is not the same conversation today.
Mhm.
There's too much going on in the person's head now that me sitting down here and just talking to you, is what we say, if you will, doesn't yield the same thing. So having, and I like this from Jeremy Miner, and this is what got me struck on this thing, is that it's about skill sets. And so when I look at all the athletes, and everybody always talks about Michael and some of the others, but there's a reason for that, because, or you look at any entertainer or anybody that's doing anything great, they do it on the highest level. And that's where the maximum payout comes out. To your
Mhm.
point, Aaron, you're right. I am 68, but I'm more excited about my business today than I've ever been because of what I'm doing and how I
Mm.
do it. And
Mhm.
just the tidbits that I pick up from you all, you don't know how much that charges me
Mhm.
to go forward. To see, I'm one of these guys, I'll read a book. I read a book, paid $20 for a book. The next day I came in and made $2,000. That's how I go. But I
Come on.
want to say this with love and respect, but I'm a smash and grab guy. I come in, get what I can, I get it, I use it, and I get out. But the long-term point of application and really getting it now is critical more than anything. And so when you all tell about these other folks who do these great things, listen, I look at myself and I say, look, I have, and I hate to say it this way, but in a way, I have nothing to lose. I don't have anything to prove to anybody. In my part of the neck of the woods, in one sense, been the most successful African American advisor in my whole area, period, for 30 years.
Yep.
But I didn't recognize that until, let's just say, about a year or so ago. And so I feel blessed that I'm able to see some of the fruits of all that running, but running ain't what it's about no more. It's about being smart and playing the game and getting the skill sets that make it work. So I think one of the things I wanted to say to you all, and some of these things I feel like you all give to me in a way that makes me better. But I see it this way. I think that for you particularly, Eli, the thing, and then even for you, Aaron, the thing that you all have that to me is the greatest part that's missing in all these things. Because if you've been there, done that, I buy it. That's it. So I can tell you who, whatever, and I've been with some of the great coaches, but I don't synthesize it. I take it and do what I do. But here's the thing. I see the market right here for you guys that really coach and train. If you have the complete package, what's the complete package, Ken? Like in this particular case where you're working with me and you're delivering me something I'm going to be able to use in 30 days, mass market sell. But that's not the game, man. The game is, yes, get them to come in. But if they don't come in and they don't buy, all I did was still spend money. So the game is, the package is showing me how to get them to come in and see me ready to buy. But then my game in the sitting down and talking to them is the closer to sell the deal. That's where it's at, man. If you do just anything, Sergio, and you know this, you can talk to 1,000 people and they'll come in and see you. But if you ain't got the skill sets to close them, that conversation you had 5 years ago is a non-starter. It's a non-starter. So anything I do, and so my whole bent now is I'm out here really trying to help people, and I know rich people need help as well.
Yep.
So this has been good stuff, and I'm all in, man. This is great, and to be able to say this because you can't say this around a lot of people
Nope.
because they don't get it. They don't get it. This is a whole nother level thing we're talking about, gentlemen. You all know that, but I'm just saying I know it and I recognize it. Now I'll shut up at that.
Mhm.
I love it. Really
Brilliant.
powerful.
Ken, you need to
Wow.
speak more often. You're too quiet on these things.
Yeah, and you got to take some of this, put into your presentation, part of your story, what you believed about
Yeah.
money. And also, this is going to be very meta, what I say here. This is obviously not a sales presentation, but if it was, we're talking about mindset. And, I had this distinction a long time ago that, like, say, and I mentioned this to Ed when we talked, I was like, just like Garrett J. White has a mindset component to the program. Now, forward facing, like this guy, Tony Robbins, created a book called Money Master the Game. It's 80% mindset, talks about psychology. And he's connecting in psychology, he's wounding in psychology, he's framing in psychology, he's getting people to understand psychology. And that connection in the psychology, the principles that are outlaid, what leads to the sale. The tactics of what you do, Ken, what you do, Ed, what you do, Sergio, for sure. There's other people out there with WFG. There's other people out there going to sell insurance. And when I do stuff in social media, and we talk about this, speaking is sharing a message, selling is gaining a commitment. And so just like Ken was saying, there's this, and we're indoctrinating, like Aaron's been talking about mindset, his principles, what he believes. You're getting to know Aaron on a deeper level. He did a lot of really skilled things, to look at it. I'll take a break here and just let you know some of the tactical things. Aaron, as he's transitioned, he'll ask himself a question. What do I mean by that? It breaks up the statement. There's a question. And also sometimes we get a little stuck. And so here's what I mean by that. So what do I mean by that? And it pulls that answer out of us. Also, he did something really brilliant that relates to this part of indoctrinating a market and connecting and challenging. So I might have some belief, and this is how I reverse engineer. I'm working on my presentation tomorrow for the Gary Vee event. And you guys all know that our process, from Eli Sanchez came up with this, building the buyer. So we start thinking the objections and the beliefs, and then we do craft a message and a story. What beliefs are we indoctrinated? Because I got this insurance thing coming up, about a 3-hour conversation with ChatGPT. I'll have consistent messages. Like, hey, if you're in sales and high ticket, the marketing can change, the offer can change, the owner can change. This is about having control. Your lead, your follow-up, your system. This is like being the CEO of your life. If you want to know how we do this, comment the word control. So control linked to a high need for certainty. When people don't have money, they don't have certainty. So that's going to be the anchor word. In this business, it's trust. So we're talking about trust all the time. So start thinking of your word and the message that you're indoctrinating. That's speaking, where you're not just speaking to share content or teaching people stuff. You're indoctrinating a value system that does a lot of the pre-selling for you. And then here we get commitment. Now, to spin on that, what Aaron did really brilliantly, that we teach for those guys in the speaker program, something called the referential index. So in this conversation, and you all did it just unconsciously, but we can become more consciously aware, just like I say. First thing you do when you get a dog, you name it, then you train it to come when you call. And so let's name it referential index of what it is. And so in this conversation right now, there's a few different entities. There's you, there's me, There's we and there's them. So think of it like that. I'm going to do some tactical vulnerability. I'm going to connect it all to the group. I'm going to create an enemy, and then I'm going to bring it back and I'm going to challenge you. So I really struggled a lot in my life with this thing called speaking, like just to look somebody in the eye or to communicate. I felt not really good. And I think we all have things we don't feel good about at times in our life. Could be in your finances, could be in your business, could just be your own self-worth. We've all got that thing that we're dealing with. But you need to realize you're bigger than anything that can stop you. And what's going to stop you? Well, there's people out there that'll tell you, do it later, objection. Those people out there say it's okay to play small. They say, don't commit because you don't want to be hurt. And they're not there trying to destroy you. They're trying to protect you. And they know that if you grow, you will leave them and you will lead them. And they're scared to see that. And so what we need to do is do the uncomfortable thing. And so see what I'm doing there. And so we get clear on those things, and we can have a great conversation. I'll, for you, Ken, you should definitely look at the transcript of this, and I'm recording this. And find some of those things in your story that are authentic and real. We don't want to say I'm a gangster, I smash and grab, and then try to get you money.
No, can't do it. Wrong crowd.
We could tell stories about principles and what we learned in our experience, and just your whole thing really, really authentic, really, really clear, but really getting those principles down and then having the point. And is not so much like the technical analysis of financial worth and percentages and points and things like that. That stuff, anybody can say that. And so that in itself, the information makes us a commodity. It's all of this. And now with AI, this stuff called brand and message and story and principles and indoctrination, they becomes way more important to be that message. And so there's some tactical things that we can do when we get on Zoom or we get on Instagram or we get on social media, we get on YouTube. It's like, what do I really want them thinking, feeling, and believing? And then anytime we're trying to transfer thoughts, feelings, and beliefs, they have resistance or they're not really thinking that way. Otherwise, they'd already be somewhere else. So we know that there's something happening there, but they're getting to break those walls down by the connection, the vulnerability, the story, and the consistency of the principles over and over again. Does it make sense?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Tony created that book, Money Master the Game. Tony's not a financial wizard. He interviewed a bunch. He just interviewed a bunch. I mean, I'm not putting him down. That, he's obviously evolved his game a lot, but it was just basically, it was a 700-page lead magnet, chapter 8, I believe, in the book. There was a link to America's best 401k. The next year, company did $8 billion, about 60, 70% from that link. So that's, you start thinking about it as a marketing asset he put out there, famous people, this, that, and he just talked about mindset. And then people, if you go on Amazon, there's reviews of the book and it's like, dollar cost averaging, don't put all your eggs in one bucket. Real great advice, Tony, this is, not anything like asset allocation. And he's like, yeah, it's pretty simple. There's like, it's like 10% strategy and it's just stories and mindset. And and that led to
buy, right? Like the reason why people buy isn't because what Eli said. Tony is some Wall Street, guy who understands inputs and outputs when it comes to that. He just understands something that most people don't understand is one of the most magnetic things you can do to make the most amount of money, which is understanding the art of communication.
Yes.
Because that is the reason why he made the money. So I had my fitness software. I know we're coming up on time, but I just want to share why this is so fundamentally powerful. I've shared before, I had my own fitness software, the Meta Mail Project, $10,000 off for 90 days, blah, 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 right? And I would sell that. My identity became, at the time, my identity was I am the best salesperson because I attached my worth to the amount I was able to tell a man to pay me for a fitness program, right? That was my worth. Only to come to realize, only when I understood that there was levels to this game, right? Only when I understood that, bravo, you were able to read a sales script. You're a parrot. Congratulations, right? Only to realize oh, so it's not the words, it's how I communicate that. And I think about this a lot when we talk about stagecraft, because that's what Eli was leveraging before, right? Stagecraft.
Mhm.
Um, um, Ken, you even touched on it. It's not what you know, it's what people can take away with them. You have to be the song that continuously play. Why do you think you can go in any inch of this world and say the word Tony Robbins and people will immediately know whom you're speaking about? It's because he's been able to create a soundtrack in people's head that they cannot get out. He's part of the dinner conversation at night. He's part of their podcast that they listen to. It's not because they see this larger than life figure. It's because the way that he communicates. It does a few things to your brain. Number one, it allows you to feel intelligent. What do I mean by that? This is critical. The way that Tony communicates, along with other very, very good speakers, is they recognize that uh, it's being concise over complexity. What do I mean by that? If I can listen to a speaker and a speaker makes me feel intelligent by using third grade level language, well, then naturally I feel like I understand it more. Y'all with me?
Yeah.
Mhm.
See, the problem is that a lot of speakers will try to obviously be more clever than clear. They'll use words that sound good to them, that stroke their own ego. And when I don't understand and if I can't follow, well, then naturally do I feel smart or dumb?
Dumb.
I feel dumb, which
Yeah.
means that there's a disconnect in the way that I learn. And so a week later, when someone goes, "Hey man, how was that talk that you went to?" Here's what they go, "Was it good?" And I go, "Yeah, it was good." "Why was it good?" "Well, it was, I can't remember all the reasons, but it was good." They said a lot of good things, but they can't quite retain the information.
Right.
And so part number one of being an exceptional speaker is being able to speak in a way that is so rudimentary and so simple, you naturally raise the level of intelligence in the room by proxy by doing so. Number two is where you start to use, and this is where we talk about like these AGs and these attention generators and things that I do with you guys, continuation questions, linking questions, rhetorical based questions, and why do I say that YouTube is the fastest way to be able to get your business online today? Think about what I just did there. Because what your brain immediately does is it goes, what is the best way to get my business online? And guys, one thing that I've realized is that the best principle, and by the way, this is the $1 million tip, so you want to lean in for this. What did I just do? I caught your attention. And
Yeah.
one thing that I've taught, one thing that I've realized over my 17 career, and by the way, they don't teach you this on Instagram.
Yeah.
All these little things, I am sending your brain dopamine, dopamine. Why does that matter for you? Rhetorical based questions, because what are you saying to yourself? Well, you're saying, why does that matter if I can answer that question? The principle that I once heard Eli talk about is that if I can write their mind, I can read their mind.
Mm.
Mm.
So if I give them the questions that their brain starts to supply at the end of the presentation, there are zero questions you're going to ask me. You just buy.
Mm.
Because throughout the entirety of the talk, I am giving your brain all the ammunition it needs. If you think about it, right? Mind blowing, right, Sergio? If you think about it, how do humans make decisions? Well, we only make decisions based on the information that we have presently in the moment. That's true, by the way. That is how we make decisions. If we don't have enough information, it leads to hesitation, doubt, fear, etc. And so part of my job as a speaker is to make sure by the end of my presentation, I have answered all questions, the who, the how, the where, the what, the when. Why do I say that? Why is it important to you? Well, Aaron, why would you make that statement? Well, here's what you need to know. And here's the most important thing. And by the way, this is critical. And check this out. And this is the $1 million tip. And this is what they don't teach you. And you're going to want to lean in for this. All these things. I'm keeping you on the edge of your seat.
Mm.
And the more that I can do that, I become the only song in your brain.
Mm.
Right. And so now that you guys understand more of this, and I know that you guys are in the speaker training program, listen to your favorite speaker. I promise you, nothing that they do is by default, it's by design.
By design.
Mhm.
Everything is methodical that comes out of their mouth. Everything. When you listen to your favorite speakers, whether it be a TD Jakes, whether it be a Peng Joon, whether it be a John Childers, whether it be all these individuals, they understand the game. They understand the game at a very high level.
Very high
Right.
level.
I'm reminded of that talk, Eli. You ever see TD Jakes, Giraffes and Turtles?
I love that talk.
Yeah, love that talk. If you guys are familiar with that talk, right? TD Jakes has a talk where he talks about, you will only eat at the level of your vision, right? And he used this as an example of giraffes and turtles. And the short version is that the reason why giraffes can see more is because of the fact that they have a different line of vision. But then you will have people in your life, the naysayers, who will tell you that it's not worth it, that you can't do it. And again, we represent that is represented as turtles. And hey, listen, we don't want to doubt the turtles. In other words, your closest friends, your loved ones, right? We don't want to say they're bad people. The only problem is that they can only eat at the level of their vision. Their level of vision is here. Your level of vision is here. And so don't hate those people, appreciate those people, but they will never understand your way of thinking. Right? I just dropped it in the chat for you guys. It's a powerful talk, by the way. This is a condensed version. He's done this bit all over, but this is a condensed version. And so step number one is if you want to get really good at communicate, forget sales. Think about communication. If you really geek out on the art of communication, you want to study from everyone. You want to understand how everyone there is a guy I want to continue to drop some gems on you. If you've heard of John McWhorter.
No.
I don't know if anyone has ever heard of him. He's a linguist.
Oh, yeah. You mentioned him before.
He is one of the most intelligent gentlemen I've ever listened to before.
What's
He's
the
a
last name again?
John McWhorter. Yeah. And to listen to how these guys speak is powerful. There are individuals. I want you to think like Winston Churchill. I want you to think Martin Luther King. I want you to think Adolf Hitler. By the way, I've spent time listening to these guys. There is a cadence in the way that they speak. It's very mesmerizing.
Mhm.
I have a dream that one day there is an unconscious rhythm in the way that they speak. Why do you think Adolf was so powerful? His cadence was more of a da 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 and da 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 da. That was his cadence. And so you can imagine the rising of the chest and the heart beating faster. And he became more magnetic, and people were drawn to that. And so influence has everything to do with all these kind of micro moments as well as the macro ones, right? The what you're saying and the how you're saying it. And so if you're a student of the game and if you're obsessed, you want to spend some time giving that a fair bit of your consideration. Is that helpful, gentlemen?
Yes.
Yeah.
Great
If
session.
if I can ask for some help, if you guys don't have time for it, I just dropped my my landing page, and there's an about section, which is a little bit of what Eli was talking about and everything. If I get some feedback, I'd really appreciate it. If when you read that about my landing page, what do you guys get from it if you were a client or a possible business partner? Would that attract you, or would that be more of an ego thing?
Could share, I could share some feedback.
If you don't mind, I would appreciate it.
Yeah, I could share some feedback in your school group, Sergio, because I'd probably have to give this, like a more deeper
Yeah.
look. You know what I
Yeah,
mean?
yeah, and again, and for everybody, I just love what everybody is was talking about, like your viewpoints,
Mhm.
and I'm looking to attract people like you,
Mhm.
and so if I can get feedback from you, that would be a huge thing for me.
I love
Again, no obligations or anything like that. Whatever
Yeah,
you can, I would
yeah.
appreciate it.
I love it. Yeah, we're here to learn. We're here to level up. Sweet.
Well,
Yeah.
listen, let me ask one quick question on that. When you drop these links in here, I can hit it now, but if I hit it now, it'll pop it up now. I tried to copy it. It won't copy. Is there a way that I can make sure I get these links and keep it? Because when you close down, this thing will shut down and I
Yeah,
won't
so,
have
so
it.
so I think if you click on it, it opens. You can now save it like in a favorites or
Yeah,
something on your
just
web
right
browser, and now
hand.
you have access to it.
Yeah, you could just hover over it, Ken, and then just right hand click it, sir, and you'll see where it says copy. And then when you just right hand click and copy, and then you
Uh-huh.
can just paste in another browser. That way he doesn't lose anything. You know?
Okay, cool.
Yeah. Yeah. So that way it stays with you at the end, even for Sergio's link here. So, all right, gentlemen. Well, I do have to hop to another call. I
Yeah,
hope you guys got at least 1% more value than what you walked into. Got a yes and yes.
absolutely.
Yeah, see what I did there? All right. Did you
Yeah.
get 1% more value? Yeah, of course I did. Of course I did, right?
Yeah.
So the perception of value is a lot higher. So sweet. All right, boys. I'll see you on Friday.
See you guys.
Thank you. Bye, guys.
Thank you.